Hey everyone, welcome back to Nia Natters. This is episode 2 of the first season. Not sure if I'm using the right terminology there, but we're just gonna roll with it. So I thought that we're still gonna be going along the lines of talking about myself and how I got here, to be honest. I hope everyone also is staying safe in the UK with this weather. It is horrendous. I was meant to go to a Christmas do today and I just decided not to because there's no way you're going to make me go out in this weather without knowing if I'm going to be blown down the street or whether I'm going to be soaked or whether I can get anyone to come and pick me up. I don't think it's going to be very high attendance today, to be honest. Okay, anyway, enough of that. So this episode is going to be called From Saddle to Success, How My Love for Animals Shaped My Dreams. I think this is a very good topic for me. I had a few requests to do one about my love of animals and my experience with my previous lone horse, Cherry. And yeah, I'd love to talk about that, to be honest. So, let's start off with, the first ever time that I wanted an animal was, like mentioned last time, was when I used to walk up the mountain and watch the farmer gallop his horse across the countryside, basically, and he'd then come and grease us, and his horse would just be like this power machine, right? Also, on top of that, my childminder also had 2 dogs, so I was always, every day I'd be surrounded by some type of animal. Then I'd pay visits to the local farm up there when I was there and help out with the lambs or go and see the lambs, then be inside the farmhouse, yada yada. And then a bit of a surprise, my grandfather bought me a dog for my birthday, and she didn't last very long. She had leukemia and she only lived to about 10 or 11 months, but when it came to actually owning a dog at that point, it really didn't. Obviously, I was too young, right? So I loved being with animals, but I couldn't own a dog. So I used to go over my grandparents all the time and ask my auntie, who had a sheepdog at the time, a border collie called Beresford. What a name, right? But that's just my auntie for you. He was like the best thing since sliced bread in my eyes. I would go over my grandparents almost every weekend and be like, "Oh, Zoe, can you drop down your dog? Can I borrow him for the weekend?" And he would let me do anything. I could get him to heel all the way from the field down a busy main road and to my nan's house and back. And he wouldn't do that type of stuff for anyone else, and that sounds like such a big-headed thing to say, but he just wouldn't. I spent so much time with him. I tried an agility course in the back garden with him. I used to stay over my auntie's house and play with him outside all day, every day. He was brilliant. And I think that's really what fused within me, like my love of animals, or that's where it started anyway. So when I turned 8 years old, I was obsessed with being on my Nintendo DS and playing Nintendogs and Pippa Funnel. And it was like an animal hospital thing as well. My favourite games. I would spend hours on them. I just wanted to be around animals at all times, make sure they're in the best health, this, that, the other. So that's really where my animal journey started. Because of that game, actually, I got into horse riding But that didn't last very long at the time because I was really nervous of like trotting by myself, and now looking back I'm like, peh, peh. Like what was I thinking? I canter now and I've jumped and all this and all that. But it is quite scary for an 8-year-old. So I think I mentioned this as well in my previous podcast. I used to have my grandfather like clinging on for dear life onto this horse while he ran around while my horse was trotting, and he wasn't allowed to let go, and none of the volunteers or the helpers were allowed to take his place. He had to do it, and I had to have exactly the same horse. I was very particular. And then one day we all lined up to get off, and this girl next to me like had her foot stuck or something like that. She just like came tumbling off the horse and really winded herself on the floor. She landed like straight on her back, and that freaked me out. I was like, I'm not coming anymore. There's no way. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to fall off. And I stopped riding for about if I was 8, probably like 9 to be honest. I stopped riding for about 5 years. And then when oh my gosh, was that the wind? Sorry, the outside is really scaring me at the moment. So during those 5 years, I would just be playing my games again. I'd be on Sims 3, I'd be having horses, I'd be on Habbo Hotel and I'd have horses and I'd have ranches and I'd get every single pony colour and name them all and train them all and hold riding lessons and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I really miss it. So I went back at the age of 14 and started my journey again. And at the age of 26, I'm still going. I haven't ridden now for about 4 months because I took a nasty fall, and as I know from experience, I'm very stubborn when it comes to stuff like that. So I'm just here like, ooh, it was a bad fall, it freaked me out a little bit. But I have booked a lesson for the 20th of December, so I will be getting back on. And yeah, so wish me luck with that. During my time horse riding though, I kind of just took lessons up until the age of 16 or 17. Then I went to college, had to give that up for studying, and then give horse riding up for studying. And then I went to uni and didn't start horse riding. I only rode horses like when I came back because I was so used to my riding school at that point. I'd been there for like 3 years. I'd finished all my levels there. I knew all the horses there. I'd ridden most of the horses there. And then obviously going to uni, there was a horse riding club that I didn't know about in the first year. So I didn't even realise that was an option for me. So I went in the second year, where I met Chloe, Jenny and Chris, who Chloe and Jenny are quite often on my streams and stuff. If you watch my gaming channel, if you haven't had a look already, please go and have a look. And that's like where our friendship came from, because then COVID obviously hit and we just all kind of stayed in touch and kept each other company during being in accommodation in uni around that time. But that also meant that we didn't ride for like 2 years, I would say. I'm just trying to think. I didn't ride for at least a year, maybe a year and a half, and then I started going up to like we tried hanging on in uni to go horse riding, but it just wasn't working because hardly anyone was attending anymore. Didn't have the motivation to keep it something when you didn't know if it was going to continue, you know what I mean? So then I came back, had a few lessons back at where I used to ride on a horse called Cherry. This is the story of Cherry. And yeah, because her owner and I are still very close despite her finishing teaching me, she was like, oh, seeing as your house sit in my house, I house sat her house as well, and I looked after her dog while she was away on holiday. She was like, oh, well, I've got a horse now. Come and look after my house and my dog, and you can also go up and ride my horse for me. So I was like, cool, no problem. Cherry is a piebald mare. She is now 8 years old, but at the time she was like, how many years ago was that? She was probably about five, I would say. So I've never been around or handled like a young horse. She's very laid back, bless her, but she's very accident prone. I loaned her for maybe a year and a half, or I bothered with her for about a year and a half, maybe slightly more. And in that time, she fractured her leg, broke her withers, had laminitis, damaged her hocks, and just a lot of things. And I think because all that happened, it also became really difficult for her to have consistent training enough to get the most out of her, if that makes sense. Because a horse kind of has a window of training, so obviously when you first handle them as foals, they should be desensitized to a lot of things straight away. But Cherry already had a late start. She probably only got handled at the age of 2 or 3. That's very late. Usually, even if you don't ride them, you bother with them and you like make sure they're desensitized to like noise, certain things moving. You take them out for walks, like in hand, and you start backing them then at around 3 or 4. In my case, it would be 4. And then, because of all that, she just kind of got started, then stopped, then started, then stopped, then started and stopped. So I probably stopped loaning her maybe over a year ago now, about a year and a half ago. And then since then, I've seen her, I went to visit her and stuff, and I kept in touch, but I just wasn't paying for her. So it wasn't like that type of relationship anymore. But yeah, we did my first show together in hand, and she had a first in one of the classes, and then she took me to my first ever outside competition in dressage. So we did intro A and we got 4th, which really isn't that bad considering that was our first time out and about, and considering all the injuries that she had. On that very day, actually, she ended up breaking her withers, and that's where it all kind of went downhill, and I stopped loaning her. But she did teach me a lot. Like, I was up there almost every day at one point when her owner was away, mucking her out, seeing to her, and you do feel that little bond that comes with, you know, all the time and energy being put into an animal. And it was just really nice because I felt like she started to trust me, I started to trust her, and I felt that way whenever I had a new horse to ride when I used to do classes and things like that. And I feel the same way with dogs as well. I feel like when I was young, I used to take advantage of animals and just see them more as, oh, they're just animals, but like I love them, so you know, I want them around me, and that's my choice. But it is, as I get older, it is more of a two-way street. An animal has to accept you and respect you as well for the relationship to be there. You can't just expect an animal to be okay with whatever it is you want to do with them. You have to make sure that they're also comfortable with it as well. So yeah, this kind of feeds nicely into what I want for my end goal, because I feel like I've always, Okay, so in terms of my end goal, there's always been some sort of animal involved in where I'd like to be in life, and that started really, really young. So, because of my love of animals at a young age, I always wanted to be a vet. Wanted to be a vet all the way up through my GCSEs, which is about 15 or 16, and continued on when I was 16 going on 17, maybe even 17 years old, until I failed my A levels. Up until that point, I'd done numerous hours working in a vet surgery for work experience. I even spent time there in the summer, my own time, not where the school expected me to go for work experience. But I was just racking up hours, getting, I just got to know them well. Oh my gosh, there was this cat in there one day. I still remember it was a really quiet cat, and it got brought in because it had no collar or tag. And it was the sweetest thing. I just kept getting it out of his cage and just, cuddling it and stuff. And I really wanted to take it home. I digress. What was I saying? But yeah, so I went to Hart Pre-College for an open day as well, and just to make sure that that was the type of place that I wanted to be. And I had all these dreams of being like, oh, even if in the first year I don't have a horse, like maybe I can afford a horse or work part-time to afford a horse for the second year, and I can keep it at Hartpury, and all of my dreams will start coming true, because then I'll be an equine vet and I can be around animals all the time. And obviously, that didn't happen because of my A levels. I just completely failed all of them, and then had to go back to uni. Go back to college, and then started my A levels all over again, and that kind of just demotivated me into trying really hard. I honestly don't think that I'm the type of person who could be challenged educationally that way anyway. I really struggled in A level, even though I did quite well in GCSE. So if I did end up being a vet, it would probably be through just my own personal experience and being around people who are doing vet-like things and learning that way, instead of going through and getting a degree in it. Anyways, that wasn't on the cards for me. So then I didn't achieve any of that, but in my heart still, even now, I'm just working really hard to get enough money to get the horse that I've always wanted, and become like a horse trainer, and adopt some dogs that just haven't found a place to call home yet, and things like that. That's just like paradise for me. Because I was talking to my partner the other day, and he was like, what motivates you to get out of bed? And I was like, honestly, animals. And he said, oh yeah, I see that. He was like, yeah, I see that, because when I had Cherry, I would literally jump out of bed and go and be up there for 3 hours, just giving my time to this animal that couldn't give me anything in return, you know what I mean? And he was like, yeah, I can really see that. You'll literally get out of bed to go horse riding at 9 o'clock in the morning if you could. And if we have my dad's dogs over to look after, I'm up at the crack of dawn making sure that they're fed and they go out to the loo. And I actually spent a summer up at my cousin's house. She had, at the time, she had 2 horses and I think it was 3 dogs. And that was like paradise to me. I loved every moment of it. I was going to bed and wanting to sleep so that I could get up early to go and see the dogs, go and see the horses. That's my little piece of paradise, and I really hope that can come true at some point. Although I have to work and get it a different way to when I first wanted it. So yeah, going back to my end goal would definitely be to have a small holding, enough land to have a few horses that I'm training, that I've bought, maybe a horse that I can start from when it's first born and keep her until it dies. And then I'd also have horses that are no longer wanted, that have been abused, and I really want to work with them. Obviously, I'm not in that place yet in terms of my horse knowledge and horse experience, so I really do have to go away and figure out how I'm going to learn all of that. I've always wanted to go to America for a summer and just work at a ranch and learn how to... It's not called join up there. I can't think... I want to learn how to teach a horse the fundamentals, so all the groundwork that they have to do before they get ridden, find ways that they can trust me. But I also want to use all of the experience that I have, or that I would have, to make sure that my judgment on how a horse should be dealt with and treated is the way that I think is correct. I feel like a lot of the horse world now, and kind of the dog world, is quite cruel and shady in terms of how horses are treated, are broken in, are trained, are ridden, are just treated in everyday life. You know, there's some horses... I really like cobs. I like cobs, and I do like a heavyweight cob as well. And I love coloured cobs, whether that's light brown and white, black and white, dark brown and white, grey and white. Love it. But yeah, I just think I'd love to do clicker training with a horse, and I would also love to try what's it called, bridleless, and also bareback with a horse. And I'd love to train a horse at liberty as well. That's just an amazing thing to be able to achieve. Obviously these things, some of them can't be done unless you just literally start, and no one can teach you this. You just have to learn it yourself when you're in contact with the horse. But yeah, going back, there's some horse breeds that I just couldn't have, such as I used to think thoroughbreds, but I think that thoroughbreds have a certain degree of trainability to them that some horses don't have, even cobs. So, but they are quite high energy horses, and I definitely would never have an Arab. And I'm just not big on warm blood horses. I just think that's not my cup of tea. I want a horse for companionship and just for it to enjoy its life and not have to be exercised every day, otherwise it's gonna be crazy and dangerous. That's just not me, as you can probably tell. And the same goes for dogs, to be honest. I could never have a Belgian Malinois, and I wouldn't want a bully. Not that there's anything wrong with them. I still don't think they should be banned, but I think that people need to... the government need to just make sure that a close eye is kept on the areas where bully breeders and dog fighting is at its most, and I think that it should be controlled that way, not to ban a breed to blame the breed, you know? I just think that it's 100% the owner's fault. I've seen some lovely bull terrier type dogs and they're so loving and so well behaved, but it's just all whatever the owner does to them and how they train them and how they teach the dog to see them is fundamental for the dog to behave well and not be dangerous. Obviously there's some dogs that they just have, it's the same as horses or any other animal, they'll always have an issue, or they'll always have a fear, or they'll have resource guarding. Like, some of that is just part of the dog and you just have to learn to manage it in a specific way. My dad's first dog, I should say my first dog, but like when I had my first dog in my dad's house, she was like the loveliest and smallest thing ever, but she had terrible resource guarding for bones, and it was only bones. Like, you could take anything else off her, but bones, you literally could not go near her. But my current two dogs at my dad's, oh my god, I love them so much. They're so good. But even them, like the male dog, he has like, I think he's anxious. He gets really dog aggressive, especially male dogs. But he probably just like wants to be the man of the house, you know what I mean? But he is the most loving thing to people, and he'll come and he'll like cuddle up to you, and I just love him so much. So yeah, and it's the same as well. Dogs that should not be bred are a thing, such as, or actually, no. Dogs that I wouldn't buy at this moment in time because of their issues, like, I have a list, right? There's at the top, there's English bulldogs. I find it so cruel that people keep buying them for how cute they look when they literally cannot eat without passing out because of how short their nose is and how much they can't breathe. Same goes to French bulldogs. I think they're overbred or they're too inbred, and that's made them become an unhealthy breed. Same with pugs. Any type of short-nosed dog, I think the breeders who are breeding them like that, there should be a law against them and they should be banned from breeding them in an unhealthy way to make their noses shorter. Only ethical breeding of those types of breeds should be done. And obviously the same with the bull terriers as well. What's another one? No, that's probably about it with dogs. I'm sure I had another one. Oh, breeds like German Shepherds. I don't think it's the working German Shepherds. I think it's the show German Shepherds. Their hips have become so weak because of the specific angle that they have to achieve in shows. It's so unfair for them, and that's mostly the main reason that they get put down now, is because of their hips. Not that there's anything like wrong with them, their hips can't support them. Same with Dachshunds, actually, sausage dogs, or Dachshunds, some people say. They shouldn't be bred to have smaller legs or a longer back, because their back will become a problem in their older years. They can't even get up on the sofa without the potentiality to hurt their back. Most Dachshund owners have ramps going up the side of their sofa so that the dog can get up. Do you really think that's fair? I really don't. I gotta say, and this might be me being biased, but the best dog that you can get is a terrier, and if possible a terrier cross, because it's not gonna have like a specific bloodline, then it's gonna be a cross. And sometimes mutts, well, I say sometimes, now you should probably look into getting a mutt, which is like a crossover of a few dog breeds, to have the healthiest possibility within the dog's life. because things are getting so inbred now that it's just getting so unhealthy and so unfair for the dogs that, like, it just makes me so mad. As you can probably tell, I've been waffling on about this topic for a while. Yeah, so rant over. But obviously I don't have any type of say in that type of stuff, but like if I end up getting like a bigger platform, because animal welfare is such a big thing to me, and if I ever have like enough money to do something about it, or enough, like, I don't know, what's the word, like, people know who I am, you know what I mean? I can't think of the word. I would, for sure, that would be the first thing that I do about it, because at the end of the day, unless the animals are in the wild, and even then, like, humans always have a say on the life of an animal, because we're the ones hunting them, we're the ones causing deforestation, we're the ones inviting them into our home to have a life with us, we're the ones breeding them unethically to look a certain way, to be a certain way, to have certain personality traits and stuff like that. I don't mind the personality traits. Sometimes you have to have a breed with a certain personality trait for them to be able to do their job properly. But when it's just to look a certain way, or like something that increases the dog's problem, definitely I don't agree with it at all. So I hope at some point I'll get like a good enough platform or a good enough amount of money to be able to help some of these animals in need, whether that's they need a home, they need training, they've had problems and that need fixing, or they need someone to stand up for them that's not doing that already, then I would love that, and I can't wait for that if that is in my future. So I think where I go from here is just continuing on to try and find a job that will support the amount of money that I need to get this ideal lifestyle of mine, and to be able to have enough time and freedom to like do all this stuff with animals, I suppose. And I would say this isn't in my cards for the foreseeable, like maybe the next 5 years, but hopefully it'll be in my life after that. Hopefully I can actually find a job where I work with animals, even though I'm really far from doing that at the moment because of the type of job that I'm in, but maybe I can find a way around it, which would be really nice. I would say that's the only struggle that I have at the moment, is that I'm so far away from animals at this time of my life. I do find that I struggle a little bit and do miss it. You should see in my spare time I have Animal Shelter on my PC, I have Sims 3 on my PC, and both of those are just basically shelters and ranches and stuff like that. I would absolutely love that. I find Western riding really interesting as well. I would probably try and teach some of the horses that I own in the future, like Western riding. I'd love to try mounted archery on them. Obviously you have to desensitize them to all that. I just want to make sure that any horse that I do have will have 100% trust in me to make the right decision and to be completely safe. I'd love to have a good reputation as like a horse trainer as well. Gosh, we got a while to go, but maybe I can, in the meantime, I can go to America at some point for a month or so and learn some stuff. When it comes to challenges in these types of topics, such as owning a dog, riding a horse, loaning a horse, owning a horse, there are a lot of mental obstacles, I would say, because let's just take horse riding, for example. No one wants to fall off or get injured, but because they're such big animals, and obviously you can't 100% trust them all the time, they're very unpredictable, they're prey animals, like, you can get hurt. And my coach has broken her back. I bruised my coccyx the other month from falling off, because that one wasn't as bad, but you know what I mean. I've been kicked, I've been stepped on, I've been dragged, I've fallen off onto my head twice. Ooh, that's a good story to tell. So one summer, I think when I was 15, I decided to help someone who had about 4 or 5 horses at the time, and she just had them in a field with a bit of a shelter. So I thought, yep, that's great. I can ride one of the horses, and then I can also help her muck out or just come and visit the horses. So I went up there a few times. I really helped out with making everything look nice, neat and tidy. I helped with like taking out the poisonous plants of the field, stuff like that. Then it came to actually riding. So my knowledge of this horse in particular was that she'd been ridden previously by a girl, and she gets ridden quite often, and so she's really well behaved and very trustworthy. So I had a bit of a ride on her and everything went fine, but we didn't go faster than a walk because she wanted to assess my riding ability. And sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, I can ride horses, and actually they really can't, and they get themselves hurt. So the second time I went up there then to ride, her owner took out the other horse, and we had a walk up the lane, we had a trot up the lane, went into this field, and she was like, right, I'm gonna canter, you just follow behind as well. I was like, no problem. Went into canter, and the horse just bucked and bucked and bucked until it had me off on the floor. So I was like, I landed on my head, and this horse went running off down the field, and the lady looked at me and was like, that's fine, you just go get her, she must have just freaked out or something, I'll help you get back on. And I was like, okay, no problem. So she said to me, well, to get back on, I'll hold the horse's reins for you while you get on, and then I'll hand them back to you. And I thought, me being like 15, I was like, yeah, no problem, sure. Gave her the reins and put one foot in the stirrup, went to swing my leg over. It was a really tall horse as well, so I struggled getting my foot in, but I was much more flexible then. Got my foot in, went to swing my leg over. The horse had pulled free of the woman, went back down the field, bucking and bucking, and I didn't even have a chance to sit in the saddle before I was back off on the floor. So I got back up, grabbed the horse again, landed on my head second time, by the way, and the woman was like, oh, try again. And I was like, I'm good, honestly, I am good. I'm just gonna walk back and that's it, that's me done. And she was like, oh, okay, well, I'll get on I'll get on her and you can get on my horse. And I was like, honestly, I'm fine, I will just lead them back, but you're very welcome to get on her. She was like, great. Asked the local farmer whose field it was. She was like, can you just give me a hand to get on this horse? And we went to the lane at that point. So he gave her a leg up. And honestly, the next bit, I don't even remember what happened exactly, but the horse freaked out again, reared up, like vertical, so only his back legs were on the floor, and she went straight onto the floor and she broke her ribs. That could have been me, and I'm as much as it's horrible to say that she was the one that got injured, but I'm so glad that it wasn't me that broke my ribs trying to prove a point, because that kind of backs up what I said earlier about wanting just safe horses. I don't want my life in danger. I want to create a nice, safe horse that is enjoyable to ride instead of you're always worrying about what it's going to do. Anyways, that was that. So I never went back up there again. And that's one memorable thing that I remember that kind of shaped my outlook on horses. Is even though there's a fine line between treating a horse well and letting a horse do whatever it likes, because I feel like you can't let a horse do what it wants, because it's always going to have a prey mentality, but you also don't have to like beat it and be horrible to it or force it to do things in order to teach it. I think there's like a nice balancing line. So I feel like this podcast has just been all over the place today. But yeah, I think that's where I stand on that type of thing. And don't get me wrong, I have done a load with horses. Like I obviously stopped and then I started again, which is like a really brave thing in my opinion to do. I got all of my levels. I went from level 1 to level 5 like really quickly, probably faster than most people. We started doing shows at the local riding school, and then I loaned a 5-year-old, which is actually crazy for your first loan pony. I don't think I'll be loaning anytime in the future either. I think I just want to start riding again and just leave it at that, because at the moment I really don't have time to go up there and take care of a horse after work, or I got a house to look after now and stuff like that. Baby steps. So, and then after that we obviously rehabbed her. We rehabbed Cherry. We went to 2 competitions, got 1 first and then a 4th with her in ridden. Yeah, I just think that I've done well considering my limited time with horses, but in the eyes of like horse people, right, I have had limited time with them. I haven't been up there every day. I haven't owned a horse where I have to literally like go up there twice a day to look after. I've only loaned a horse for about 1.5 years, so in my limited time I do think that I've achieved quite a decent amount. And then when I started riding after Cherry, I was helping like horses with some issues and stuff like that. So, you gotta keep growing, but this type of growing isn't sometimes linear, because it is an animal you have to take into account for, and they don't always feel the same way or feel the same each day, so you really got to take their personality into consideration as well. One thing I can be excited for is definitely not waiting 5 years to have a dog. I would love a little terrier, and I'd love to either adopt one but have an adopted dog where they're quite malleable, because I'd love to take the dog to agility training classes and obedience classes. I'd love to do agility, or try it at least. But that dog would want for nothing, honestly. I'm so excited about that. That's one thing that I can't wait for. Although I was talking to my partner and I was like, I'm not ready to give up my early my lie-ins yet. I really want my lions, so I will be waiting a little bit before I do anything, any type of purchase of an animal. But I literally can't wait, even though I can kind of wait. So I suppose I want to shift my question, well, a question to you if you are still listening at this point. Thank you very much if you are. Has a passion of yours ever shaped a dream that you have? And if it has, then what was it, and how has it shaped your dream or your end goal? Please make sure to also share your experiences with animals, or even horses, or horse riding if you do horse riding. And let me know, like, what you think of relationships between yourself and animals, or how do you find horse riding? Please let me know. So I think that that's all I have to say on this topic. I think animals always have been and always will be a big part of my life, or I'd at least like them to be a big part of my life for the foreseeable future. Maybe not yet. Definitely not yet, as we've discussed. And yeah, I think it's quite a solid goal that I have, and I always will have, of wanting to help animals and wanting to just try and make the world a better place for animals as well, because they didn't choose to have this life. Like, we decided to tame them and give them this life anyway. And as much as I know that, especially dogs, I don't know about cats, I'm not that well versed with cats, that's why I didn't talk about them much, but dogs love having lives with people, but that's only because they've been domesticated. And that's always in the back of my mind, because that's why I have such a strong feeling about making sure that any animal that comes into my life has like the best life possible that I can give it, because it didn't choose to be there. I chose it, and I chose it for it to come and live with me. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you lot have to say about your own passions, and please let me know how you're pursuing your passions, and I hope that this has inspired you a bit more to think about your hobbies and what you enjoy out of life, and how to integrate them into a passion for yourself. If you did want to have a look at my coaching website, because I do have some ways to set goals to pursue your passions in some of my packages, then I will link my website in my bio and down below as well. Other than that, I will finish there. Thank you so much for listening if you've made it this far. Sorry, my mood and energy today is a bit wishy-washy, and I feel like that really did come out in my podcast today. In the next podcast, I will be discussing more about my life. Like I said, we're going to do 5 episodes to kickstart this podcast about myself, and the title for that episode will be called My Journey So Far, Lessons from Life's Highs and Lows. So we'll just be getting a bit more in depth with what's gone on in my life, how it's shaped me a bit more. Obviously we discussed about my childhood last time, but we can talk more about myself, and hopefully some people will feel like they can relate and they feel a bit inspired by what I've said. Anyways, thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and like I said earlier, please stay safe if you are in the UK or if anything is going on around you that I am not aware of. Just make sure you stay safe, have the best time, and please continue to pursue your passions. Thanks everyone. Bye.